Hey kiddos, welcome to the land of independent and dependent variables. As a reminder, the dependent depends on the independent. So the independent is the one that causes change in the dependent. Let's jump in. We're looking at this first graph. The independent is the water. And what depends on the water? The growth of the plant. So the water changes the amount of growth. If we don't have enough water, the growth does not increase. All right, this time we're looking at playing outside. We're looking at days of the week and minutes. Independent variable is the days of the week. And the dependent is the minutes. So we know that on the weekend, we're going to have more time to stay outside. So depending on the day of the week, it's going to change the amount of minutes that I'm outside. We're looking at the average monthly temperature in different months. So the temperature is going to depend on the month. Over here, we're looking at pages read on different days of the week. And the days of the week is going to change the pages that are read. Going down to ice cream sales, we're looking at cones sold in hundreds and the days of the week. So again, the days of the week are going to change the amount of sales. And more sales during the weekend than we will during the week when people are usually working and at school. All right. The miles walked and the days per month. Well, the miles walked and the days. So the amount of days we have is going to be changed by the miles walked. Any questions on these? Bring them with you to class. All right, Nuggets, looking at the independent and dependent. Remember, the dependent relies on the independent. So the dependent actually, I'm thinking of these. These need to be flip-flopped. This should be the miles depends on the days per month. More days, more miles. All right, back to where we were. Construction worker is painting houses. The number of paint buckets he brings in daily determines by the number of houses he will paint. So what depends on what? The number of houses depends on the paint buckets. So the more paint he brings, the more houses he can paint. The number of buckets scored in a basketball game determines the team score. So the score depends on the baskets. Concert hall is planning the fall season. The number of concerts they book is based on the money they need to profit. So the concerts depend on the profit. The more profit they need, the more concerts they will book. Students' grade on a test is determined by the number of hours they spent studying. So the grade depends on the hours studying. A plant's growth is based on the amount of water and sunlight it receives. So the growth depends on sun and water. And then the time it takes to get somewhere is based on the speed and distance the vehicle is traveling. So time depends on speed and distance. Any questions on these, kiddos? Bring them with you to class. All right, we're using the y equals kx formula to determine these graphs. Remember, don't get stuck in that. All it means is x times what gives me y. So if I look here, I have times 8 times 8 times 8. So y is equal to 8 times x. That's all. The change times x. Over here, I see that I am multiplying by 3, by 3, by 3. Y is equal to 3 times x. I take my x value, multiply it by 3, I get my y. Down here, I am dividing by 2, dividing by 2, dividing by 2. So I could say y is equal to x over 2 or y is equal to 1/2 x. Both of these would be correct. Over here, again, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. y is equal to 1/2 x, or y is equal to x over 2. Down here, I'm dividing each of these by 5. So y is equal to 1/5 of x, or y is equal to x over 5. And then our last one here, I'm multiplying by 9. So y is equal to 9x. Any questions on these? Bring them with you to class. All right, we're doing the same thing as last time, but we're describing the relationship without the y equals kx formula. And we're also completing the table. So I go from 4 to 1 by dividing by 4. I go from 8 to 2 by dividing by 4. So my rule is divide by 4. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. Over here, 8 times 5 is 40, 9 times 5, 7 times 5 is 35. The rule is multiply by 5. Down here, I'm doing times 3, which gives me 30. The rule is multiply by 3. For this one, I am multiplying it by 2. 10 times 2 is 20, 13 times 2 is 26. Down here, I'm going to divide by 5, which gives me 6. Again, the rule is divide by 5. And then here, times 8. Times 8 gives me 40. My rule is multiply by 8. Any questions on these? Bring them with you to class. All right, now let's write a variable statement for the scenario below. So we're talking about the dependent and independent variables. So it says the more Lindsay practices the piano, the better she will become. So Lindsay's piano depends on how much she practices. Exposure to the air pollution over long periods of time has negative effects on the respiratory system. So health of the respiratory system depends on the amount of air pollution. The amount of sleep a student gets affects their productivity in class. So productivity depends on sleep. The more you study for a test, the higher grade you receive. So grade depends on study time. The more Jen procrastinates, the more stress she will feel. So stress depends on procrastination. And last one, the more Joyce waters a plant, the faster it will grow. So growth depends on water. That brings us to the end, my friends. Any questions? Bring them with you to class.